8, 2022, the DuPage County Board to order. And if I may, I'd like to ask Member Dawn Dessart, if you'd be kind enough to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, and then everyone please remain standing for the invocation to follow. Member Dessart.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
May I ask our board member, in place of Pastor Canitras, who is unfortunately was unable to join us this morning from the African Methodist Episcopal Church in Lisle, unable to join us, but we do have Member Lynn LaPlante to lead us in invocation. Member LaPlante.
Thank you so much. I would like to ask all of us to take a moment here before we begin our business for the citizens of DuPage County to pause, remember why we are here, what made us run for office in the first place. Remember that we are all here together as neighbors, as members of the same community. We are here to do what's the best interest for the citizens of DuPage County, to be grateful for this opportunity to serve, which is one of the highest honors, is to be a public servant. It doesn't matter what side of the aisle you're on. It doesn't matter what your background is. We're all here together. I hope we never lose sight of that. I hope we learn to see each other as equals, as partners, and with the same shared vision of supporting the great county of DuPage. I respectfully appreciate my colleagues here, our staff, everyone who has the best interests at heart. I'm proud to serve alongside the other members of the board, and I ask that everyone give us support, help, encouragement, and we really serve with the highest intentions in our hearts. Thank you so much.
Amen. Amen. Very nice. We might make you a regular invocator after that one. Mr. Deputy Clerk, Adam Johnson, please call the roll. Chaplain.
Here.
Chavez.
Here.
Covert.
Here.
Dessart. DeCiani. Eckhoff. Garcia. Hart. Krajewski. LaPlante. Ozog. Pachowski. Renahant. Rutledge.
Here.
Schwarzy. Selman. Tornatore.
Here.
And Zay. We have a quorum. Thank you, Deputy Clerk Johnson. On the order of Chairman's reports, I have a couple of items to share with you. First and foremost, I'd like to invite Janice Guider from our Health Board, Sam Tornatore, our Chairman of the Board, Karen Ayala, and Paula Garcia to join me up at the podium. And as they make their way here, I can share with you that we're here to celebrate Black History Month, and we note the theme of the 2022 celebration is Black Health and Wellness. And this represents a great opportunity to familiarize all of you, our board and our community, with the outstanding work of the DuPage Health Board's Health, Equity, and Access Response Team, or HEART is the acronym, H-E-A-R-T. Not Greg Hart, it's H-E-A-R-T. So it's DuPage Health Board's Health, Equity, and Access Response Team. And it's been a marvelous effort. Mrs. Guider is an important member of that group, a crucially important member. She and other team members work to ensure that all residents of DuPage County have access to health services and information so that they can get the care that they need. And one thing we've learned, we've witnessed during this pandemic, is the disparity in health, services. Those who are less fortunate tend to get less health attention for their health and service. Sam Tornatore, our esteemed president of our Board of Health, and Paula Deacon Garcia, member of the Board of Health, and Karen Ayala, executive director, are all here to support, are in support of HEART and our proclamation in honor of Black History Month. I'm going to read the proclamation, and then I'm going to ask Ms. Guider if she'd be kind enough to share a few thoughts with us. Real quick, I will read the proclamation, and then I want to get to Ms. Guider's remarks. Whereas the month of February is celebrated as National Black History Month, recognizing the heritage and achievements of African Americans, and whereas this annual event gives DuPage County residents and all Americans a chance to recognize and commemorate the contributions African Americans have made and continue to make that are an integral part of our society. And whereas the event began in 1926, created by historian Carter G. Woodson and other prominent African Americans to raise awareness of African Americans' contributions to civilization, and whereas the celebration was expanded to a month in 1976 during the nation's bicentennial, President Gerald Ford urged Americans to, quote, seize the opportunity to honor the too often neglected accomplishments of Black Americans in every area of endeavor throughout our history, unquote. And whereas, as we celebrate National Black History Month, DuPage County recognizes the theme of the 2022 celebration, Black Health and Wellness, encouraging practices that improve overall health and contribute to the wellness of the African American community, as well as recognizing the many contributions of Black medical professionals, researchers, and clinicians in our community. And whereas, as we recognize this year's theme, we note the important contributions of the DuPage County Health Department's Health Equity and Access Response Team, or HEART, whose members advocate for and provide health information and critical services to people of color and those typically underserved in our communities. And whereas, as we mark the 46th annual celebration of National Black History Month, DuPage County joins all Americans in celebrating our nation's diverse heritage and culture, and we commend the Health Equity and Access Response Team for their efforts to champion good health, promote health equity and wellness for all, and to ensure that DuPage County remains one of the healthiest places in the nation for every resident. Now, therefore, be it resolved that I, Daniel J. Cronin, Chairman of the Board, members of the Board, do hereby recognize February as National Black History Month and do support and commend DuPage County's Health Equity and Access Response Team as members foster healthy outcomes and provide equal access to health services for all people in our community. I'll entertain a motion. So moved. Seconded. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The resolution is adopted. Janice Guider, thank you for your leadership and your service and accepting this opportunity. Please.
Before Janice comes up, I've been asked to say a few words. As you know, COVID-19 has disproportionately impacted communities of color, and here in DuPage County, our Black, Hispanic, and Asian population have substantially higher rates of infection, hospitalization, and death. To address and reduce this burden among these populations, the DuPage County Health Department, in partnership with the Health Equity Response Team, or HEART, has implemented strategies to increase access in PPE supplies, testing, vaccinations, and education. I'm proud to work with the Health Department in convening all of the stakeholders of HEART who represent many diverse members of our community to address the issues that affect our residents. HEART is committed to reducing the burden of COVID-19 among populations at increased risk, to addressing the health disparities related to COVID-19 through a total approach toward health and wellness, and developing a strategic plan to help achieve these goals. With leaders like Karen Ayala and board members like Paula and Janice, it's no wonder that we receive proclamations and we've been so successful in doing the things that we've done. Now, Janice Guider, one of our board members, is going to highlight the work of HEART in the African American community. Janice?
Good morning. Are you hearing me okay? Good. First, I would be remiss if I did not thank the DuPage County Board, Chairman Cronin especially, for placing your trust in me as a member of the DuPage County Board of Health. I have and I will continue to strive to earn the faith that you have placed in me. And I want to thank my president, Sam Torrey. Did I say that correctly? I did, okay. For that lovely introduction. Okay. You know, when I first joined the board, I said, the thing I'm most nervous about is mispronouncing his name. So we've gotten over that. So thank you. It was the late Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. who stated, of all the forms of inequality, injustice in health care is the most shocking and inhumane. Barriers to health care and alarming health outcomes are the narrative of historically marginalized populations, and the SARS-CoV-2 pandemic illuminated existing inequalities and disproportionately high morbidity and mortality rates. We lived and observed this history, presenting unique challenges for thousands of African American Blacks, Hispanics, Latinx, Indigenous Americans, Asian American populations, and as well our healthcare professionals. The mortality rate for vulnerable people imperiled us all to an unavoidable, now shared mission by our nation, our state, and county to mitigate health disparities. The Health Equity Access and Response Team, a remarkable collaboration representing numerous human service providers and public health professionals, came together in October of 2020. Respectfully, we investigated health disparities in BIPOC communities related to COVID-19 in DuPage County. The work of HEART expanded the accessibility of COVID-19 vaccinations to our communities and improved education to increase vaccine confidence. Working with this racially and ethnically diverse group of DuPage County residents is rewarding and humbling as we strive to mitigate health disparities and contribute to a safe, healthy, and thriving DuPage County community. Vaccine clinics. The first clinics at DuPage County Health Department and in the community focused on health equity. Together with faith communities and the Illinois Department of Public Health, the first mobile vaccine clinic was held at the DuPage AME Church in Lisle, led by Reverend Morgan. The AME Church Clinic provided hundreds of vaccines to largely African American parishioners 65 plus years old. Future collaborations have led to caravan clinics in neighborhoods and schools with a focus on health disparities. Vaccine confidence. HEART has provided a forum to better understand the reasons for vaccine hesitancy among our African American residents. And let me add to that, not just our African American residents, but all populations that have not responded well for various reasons to participating in the vaccines. We have provided monthly discussions, town halls, and presentations by leaders that look like the people they're speaking to. Vaccine concerns have been addressed and better understood. And in addition to public forums, HEART has conducted focus groups with African American residents as well. Advancing COVID-19 treatment, access, and education. Collaboration with medical professionals and social services organizations to provide bilingual education about the latest treatment in COVID-19. We've held discussion and focus groups to understand the symptoms and when to seek treatment to help people avoid the harsh impacts of COVID-19. And as I introduce our Executive Director, Karen Ayala, she's going to highlight the collaborative efforts of HEART. I just want to publicly thank Karen and the DuPage County Health Department and the support that they have received, not just from the DuPage County Board of Health, but from our own DuPage County Board. That's important. It's critical, especially during these times when there's so much contention in our air, and often just because people don't understand. And as we go forward, we are going to focus on improving health literacy. And when I say go forward, I'm not just saying go forward in COVID, because eventually we will reach a point where we have to begin to seriously look at those health disparities that were there before COVID. So, and that's what Karen's going to do, right, Karen? Okay, so I give you our own Karen Ayala.
Thank you, Janice, Sam, and Paula. It is only through that support that we have made it through the last 2+ years. As you know, DuPage County Health Department is charged with protecting the health and wellness of the residents of our county. Our work with HEART focuses on multifaceted strategies, many of which, or several of which, Janice outlined, to address health disparities and ensure that all residents have the optimal access to health care in DuPage. However, HEART extends beyond the DuPage County Health Department and reaches out to our partners in the community, the DuPage Health Coalition, the DuPage Federation for Human Services Reform, and Impact DuPage. Now, we all know and celebrated that DuPage County has been named the healthiest county in Illinois, but not all residents have access to equitable health care. HEART is a county-wide voice for health equity and access for DuPage County residents, ensuring that all residents attain the highest level of health possible. The coalition has more than 30 individual members and organizations meeting monthly, representing the African American, Black, Latinx, Muslim, Middle Eastern, North African, Asian, and multicultural groups and elected officials. We have greatly appreciated the support of County Board Member Lynn LaPlante in our efforts, as well as many municipal and state leaders. I truly appreciate the proclamation from County Board Chairman Cronin and the entire County Board for the recognition of the work HEART has accomplished to address health disparities. Now, looking forward, as Janice mentioned, we will continue the work through the work of Impact DuPage. We have engaged local leaders, community groups, and health systems to determine our goals and health priorities as a community for the next 3 years. HEART will continue to play an important part in addressing and leading our efforts to reduce health disparities amongst all residents. Lastly, I'd like to recognize, and I'm able to do that in person, our wonderful partners, Dave Roth, Executive Director of the DuPage Federation on Human Services Reform, and Kara Murphy of the DuPage Health Coalition, who are here with us today. Thank you for this resolution celebrating Black History Month and recognizing HEART's efforts to assure every resident of DuPage County achieves optimal health. Thank you.
Pastor C, would you be kind enough to join us up here? And maybe would you be kind enough to consider giving us a little blessing as we proceed along our board meeting here? We're so fortunate to have you join us, and we could use a little blessing, so thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. May we bow our heads for a word of prayer. God of our weary years, God of our silent tears, thou who hast brought us thus far on the way, thou who hast by thy might led us into the light, keep us forever in the path, we pray. God bless these proceedings, that your presence will be felt, that your justice will be given, that your heart will be moved. Is our prayer in Jesus' name. Amen.
That's great. Thank you so much. Okay, I have a couple of remarks here real quick. Monday is Valentine's Day, so don't forget to take care of your favorite Valentine. And the public may join us in sharing some warm wishes with our DuPage Care Center residents. We used to engage with them on Valentine's Day. Remember, we'd blow up the balloons and we'd do a lot of things to interact with them, but all of that is on hold. We all recognize how difficult these past 2 years have been for our friends and neighbors at the Care Center, as the COVID pandemic has often dramatically impacted their quality of life and also the duties of our staff over there. We commend them again and again. I think this year it's especially important that we let our residents know how often we are thinking of them. And even if we can't visit, maybe you would consider some kind of a message. We can all participate by purchasing balloon greetings for our residents online at dpccfoundation.org. The foundation is hosting this annual fundraiser to not only spread a bit of love and warm wishes, but also to raise a little bit of money for programs that enhance the recreational opportunities of our care center residents. On Valentine's Day and every day, we want the residents and staff to know how much we love them and appreciate them. So if you would consider that, that might be something you would like to do. And all the best to all of you celebrating February 14th, Valentine's Day. That concludes my remarks. Move on to the next order of business. Entitled Public Comment. According to our board rules, members of the public shall be afforded time to address the board. Individual remarks shall not exceed 3 minutes in length, please, nor shall the total time provided for all remarks exceed 30 minutes. We have two folks, two friends seeking recognition here today. Do you want to offer some testimony, public comment? Regina Brent, our friend from Naperville and Unity Partnership.
I may be permitted to remove my mask. I'd appreciate it.
Okay by me.
Good morning, Chairman. It's great to see you again and the board members of the county board. I'm here with a heavy heart today, even though we're here to celebrate Black History Month, in which I must continue to commend the chairman for being the first public official out here in DuPage County to honor such a resolution, and all the other previous board members. Larson is not here, and Tony Michalowski is not here, but Liz and Larson, Tony Michalowski, and I think someone Glasgow, I think he was one of the others who helped facilitate that resolution to be passed April 26, 2016. I never will forget it. I appreciate it. And the African American community is very grateful to you, Chairman, for making such a great accomplishment. I want to proceed on to say that my heart is heavy today simply because the auntie and the uncle of Amir Locke is here this morning. While we don't paint everyone, all law enforcement officers, with the same brush, I am here to make sure that you know that DuPage County has the most stellar law enforcement agency that I've ever lived in that particular lay of the land. And for that, I want you to know we meet monthly. We will be meeting tomorrow, as a matter of fact. Our law enforcement meeting that we hold with them, and it's sometimes 36 to 40 chiefs on that call. So if your chief in your district is not participating, please ask them to contact Unity Partnership. Regina.Brent is my email address, regina.Brent at unitypartnership.org. so that we can continue to have these conversations, which are preventive measures in order to keep unnecessary killings happening. We should be able, as African American people, sleep in our homes peacefully. We should be able to come home from work as women and not have to stand naked for 46 minutes while we're being unjustifiably searched in our homes. We should be able to sleep on our couches at night. We should be able to walk the street, talk, and drive while black without any police misconduct. And I want you to know that the State's Attorney, Berlin, and the Sheriff Department is partnering with us in order that we can come up with some preventive measures in order to keep this from happening out here in this lay of the land. We know that things are sometimes probable more than possible, but the bottom line is we do exist in this lay of the land. You have acknowledged that today with a beautiful proclamation, and I thank you for that. God bless you. Stay warm and stay safe.
Thank you, Regina. Our next public commenter, Andrew and Linda Tyler.
I just want to say that I want to talk a little bit about Amir. I'm his auntie, and I was there when he was born. This is really troublesome for me because we do everything that we can to make sure that our kids are law-abiding citizens. We do everything to make sure that they live to see another day. Just because we are faced with these unjust and sometimes unwarranted attacks just because they are black males. So we have to make sure that we're doing everything to protect them. He had a gun permit. He was a licensed gun owner. He did the research. He wasn't neglectful in doing it. He wanted to make sure he did it right. He was at his cousin's house. He's a 22-year-old sleeping on the bed. How many of you have 22-year-olds sleeping on the couch? It's what you do. And I know the rhetoric that is being put in the news, but I really want to clarify some things. Of course he had his gun next to him. He was at his cousin's house, laying. If I go into somebody's house and I have a gun on me, I'm not going to sleep with it. I'm going to put it aside. He wasn't on the warrant. He doesn't have a criminal record, nor should any of that matter. He was home. He just came back from working, doing DoorDash. He was exhausted. How often does it take for you to wake up? For me, a 9-year-old, I have to give her 5 extra minutes for her to get out of the bed. So this no-knock warrant did not warrant his life. It really didn't. He's not here today because of course he reached for his gun because he didn't know what was going on. Somebody came, the cops bust in, they quietly came in, and then they announced themselves. And he still didn't wake up until they kicked the couch. And he was startled. You would do the same thing. So I'm asking that you support us, that people have the right to bear arms. People have the right to be protected in their home. This 22-year-old should not be dead. No-knock warrants are unacceptable. And I'm tired of black mothers. And we don't, we get caught up in trying to make it about race, but the facts show it's not that we're making this up. This is not what we were expecting, and now it's something that we had to deal with because we raised him so that he could achieve greatness. and now he's gone. And we have respect for the law. But like with any occupation, if you're neglectful in your job, you should be let go. Regardless of who you are, you should be let go. We don't need more training because they were already trained. They can have the wherewithal, they can have the ability, and they can have the patience to de-escalate any other situation that doesn't involve men of color. So the training is not needed. This is about dealing with the heart of a person. We're brothers and sisters. If you needed my kidney, it wouldn't matter that I was black. We have to look out for each other. We need justice for me.
If you would allow me a little more time. I just wanted to share with you guys that as of yesterday, my name is Andrew Tyler, my wife Linda Tyler, and I was there when Amir was born. I'm his uncle. The White House press secretary yesterday, Amir's name has touched the lips of the president and the White House press secretary, and what they said was White House considers expanding limits on no-knock warrants after Amir Locke's death. I want to say this out loud because I had to really think about it. One of our attorneys on the Ben Crump team and Tony, in a town hall yesterday on no-knocks, he said, no-knock warrants are the most intrusive, most egregious ways that government have of entering into a home. And I second that. You're entering into someone's dwelling. Anjanette Young was naked. My nephew was asleep. There are numerous incidents where people are, Breonna Taylor was sleeping in the bed. Her boyfriend was awakened. She stayed asleep and took a bullet and died in sleep. There's something to be said about this. So I wanted to touch on it from a different era. His father is a Chicago native, Andre Locke Sr. He's a Chicago native, born on the west side of Chicago. He lives and resides in Minnesota right now, but he's one of our own. His granddad lives here in the Chicagoland area. Their family is from Chicago, between Minnesota, Detroit, all over the country. And my nephew, without controversy, my nephew was a law-abiding citizen. There's something to be said about that. Because the first thing that the media did was look for anything in his background. I went on the People Search page. People had paid over 400 times to try to find something on his background. It's ridiculous. It is ridiculous. Amir Locke was a brilliant young man. He was looking to pursue a career in music. He was looking to pursue a career in engineering, music engineering actually, in Dallas, and he was back and forth. If you ask why, I want to answer this question. His mother lives in Texas. He was back and forth between Texas and Minnesota, and he got his permit in Texas. That's why the gun was with him in Minnesota. So he's at his auntie's house, at his cousin's house. He's asleep on the couch, and his firearm is next to him. He's not going to store it. It's next to him. He had just got done doing DoorDash. He kept it in his car to protect himself. And he's always been an upstanding, law-abiding citizen. And mind you, we have law enforcement in our family. This is not about hate the police. I've been a part of Unity Partnership with Regina Brent for the last 5 years, where we bridge the gap between the police and the community. Chief David and many of the chiefs of Naperville, I've met with all of them. Wheaton, Naperville, Downers Grove, and we all have a relationship. In fact, I've made many of their videos for the liaison aspect between the community, and we'll sit and we'll have town halls and we'll discuss what's going on in these communities of color. I ask that you please join with us. We are citizens. My wife and I are citizens here in DuPage County. Pastor C, I want to pay homage to her because she has been by our side this entire time, along with the Brent team at Unity Partnership. And I ask that you please join with us in an effort to keep Amir Locke's name from not being slandered in the media. And I do apologize for the 3 minutes. I know 3 didn't turn to 10, but thank you so much for allowing us this platform. And I want to say God bless you all, And thank you for supporting my wife and I in this endeavor as we travel back to Minnesota on a national platform, and we have to defend our nephew. We shouldn't have to defend what's right. Am I right about it? My former pastor, he said, right is right, wrong is wrong, and right don't wrong nobody. Some of y'all will get that on the way home. But it's something to be said about right. And I believe that the truth doesn't have to be defended. So Lord willing, this will come out in a different way. And his father did tell me this. He said he wanted no-knock entries banned, and he wants a monument built, some type of a memorial built in the name of Amir Locke with all of the names of those that have been slain from Emmett Till to today, from Emmett Till to Amir. The parallels of Emmett Till are very similar. They went into his unit, they crossed the threshold, they snatched him out of his bed. And today, on February 2nd, the beginning of Black History Month, they went into that threshold and they snatched my nephew's life. The same way they snatched Emmett Till, from Emmett to Amir. Let that be your headline, from Emmett to Amir. Let that please be your headline. Thank you all. Thank you.
Thank you, Andrew. Very powerful words. Thank you. Thank you very much for sharing your sentiments with us. Appreciate that very much. Thank you, Regina. Thank you, Unity
Thank you,
Partnership.
Chairman. I would like to just make one last request.
Sure.
That we get I can call Joan at any time.
I can. I'm sorry.
To get an, oh gosh.
I would like to call Joan in the future to get an appointment with you.
Sure.
With our organization, so that we
Sure,
can talk
absolutely. You don't have to
about
call- yeah.
The organizations that are supporting the police out here, so
Yes.
that we can get some kind of financial support to do a caravan to all the counties, the municipalities, so that we can sit down and have this conversation, because it's very well needed. Thank you so much. Good seeing everybody. Take care.
All right, I believe that concludes our public comment. Is there online comment? Oh, yes. Yes. Evan Shields, ladies and gentlemen, with the online comments.
Good morning, everyone. First comment is from Jared Gentile. The subject is improper conduct. Comment reads, harassment based on other protected classes is also strictly prohibited. Under this policy, harassment is defined as verbal or physical conduct that demeans or shows hostility or aversion toward an individual because of their race, color, religion, sex, sexual orientation, gender identity, order of protection status, national origin, age, disability, marital status, citizenship, or any other characteristic protected by law, and that, 1, has the effect of creating an intimidating, hostile, or offensive work environment. This summarization was taken from the Employee Handbook. Margaret Ewing, Director of Human Resources, in a phone call made to me in June 2020 while I was still an employee, engaged in a verbal attack and treated me like I was an indentured servant to her, ordering me to return to work. Not asking, but ordering. Loud and demeaning, she reiterated, quote, "You will return to work, Mr. Gentile, you will return." I was taught to never allow someone to intimidate you or disrespect you as a person. Her efforts failed then, and now I am hopeful the board actually does something with this information. Where there is smoke, there is fire, and if she tried to create fear in me, then she has done it most likely in the past and even today. I was at the time engaged with her regarding a reasonable accommodation request during the tumultuous pandemic period. It was quite disturbing, and I reported it to County Board Member Zay and others, and she has a position of authority. I plead with the board and all citizens listening today and request an inquiry into her conduct, demand action to ensure her lack of civility and decency never happens again. Thank you, Gerald Gentile. The second comment is a duplicate from the same individual. The last 4 comments are all from Karen Rugg. The first is a public comment regarding flooding in DuPage County that has nothing in the comment field. The second is a record of attendance only regarding DuPage County flooding with nothing in the comment field. The third is a record of attendance only with no subject and nothing in the comment field. And the last one is a record of attendance only with nothing in the subject field and nothing in the comment field. That is all the public comment.
Okay. That appears to conclude our public comment portion of our meeting. We move on to the next item of business entitled consent. Is there a motion?
So moved.
There's a motion and a second. Mr. Deputy Clerk, please call the roll. Chaplin.
Aye.
Chavez. Covert. Desart. DeCiani. Eckhoff. Garcia.
Aye.
Hart. Krajewski. LaPlante. Ozog. Pachowski. Renahan. Rutledge.
Aye.
Schwarzy. Selman. Tornatori.
Aye.
And Zay. Thank you. We move on to the next item of business entitled County Board. Member Ashley Selman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move on CBR 80-22, a resolution appointment of Brandon Hurd as the ACDC representative on the ETSB.
Been a motion and a second. Mr. Deputy Clerk, please call the roll. Selman.
Aye.
Tornatori. Zay. Chaplin. Chavez. Covert. Desart. DeCiani. Eckhoff. Garcia. Hart. Krajewski. LaPlante. Ozog. Pachowski. Renahan. Rutledge. And Schwarzy.
Aye.
Thank you. Member Selman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move on CBR 79-22, a resolution appointment of
Second most
Misael
favorable.
Hernandez as a member of the Public Representative ETSB.
Leave is granted. Member Selman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And finally, I move on CBR 76-22, a resolution appointment of Jeremy Wang to the Downers Grove Sanitary District.
Could we get a roll call vote on this one, please?
Sure. A roll call is always in order. So there's been a motion and a second with respect to CBR 76-22, appointment of Jeremy Wang to the Downers Grove Sanitary District. Mr. Clerk, please call the roll. Selman.
Aye.
Tornatori. Zay. Chaplin.
Aye.
Chavez. Covert. Desart. DeCiani. Eckhoff. Garcia.
Aye.
Hart.
Aye.
Krajewski. LaPlante. Ozog. Pachowski. Renahan. Rutledge.
Aye.
And Schwarzy. That resolution is adopted. Thank you, Member Selman. A fine report. On to the order of finance. Member Liz Chaplin.
Good morning. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move approval of FIR 007222, acceptance and appropriation of additional funding and extension of the time of the Victims of Crime Act Coronavirus Emergency Supplemental Fund, $7,500.
There's been a motion and a second. Mr. Clerk, please call the roll. Chaplin.
Aye.
Chavez. Covert. Desart. DeCiani. Eckhoff. Garcia.
Aye.
Hart. Krajewski. LaPlante. Ozog. Pachowski. Renahan. Rutledge.
Aye.
Schwarzy. Selman. Tornatori. And Zay. Thank you. Member Chaplin.
Thank you. I move approval of FIR 007422, acceptance of the Illinois Emergency Management Agency Emergency Management Performance Grant Intergovernmental Agreement, $203,871.13.
Leave is granted. Member Chaplin.
Thank you. I move approval of FIR 008222, appropriation of the $5,000 to the People Made Visible, Inc. for the Healthy West Chicago Initiative, ARPA item.
Leave is granted. Member Chaplin.
Thank you. I move approval of FIR 008122, resolution approval of a grant agreement between the County of DuPage and People Made Visible, Inc. for the Healthy West Chicago Initiative in the amount of $15,000, ARPA item.
Leave is granted. Member Chaplin.
I move approval of FIR 007722, placing names on payroll.
Leave is granted. Member Chaplin.
Thank you. I move approval of FIR 007822, budget transfers 2822 from various companies' accounting units.
Leave is granted. Member Chaplin.
Thank you. I move approval of FIP 006522, recommendation for the approval of a contract to Prager Moving and Storage for the transportation of voting equipment for DuPage County Clerk Election Division, $136,000.
Leave is granted. Member
Thank you.
Chaplin.
Thank you. I move approval of FIO 001422, ordinance repealing Chapter 2, Article 9, Section 2600 of the DuPage County Code of Ordinances as required by Public Act 102-664.
Leave is granted.
And I move, finally, I move approval of FICO 000622, Second Amendment to Resolution FIP 003221, issued to Bond, Dixon, and Associates, P.C. to provide continued representation in the matters related to specialized area of election law as Special Assistant State's Attorney to increase the funding amount of $57,823.05.
Leave is granted. Thank you, Member Chaplin.
Thank you.
On to the order of Environmental, Member Rutledge.
Thank you, Chairman. Good morning, everybody. Most gardeners, or most people, think the first sign of spring is when snowdrops start to emerge from the ground, but gardeners know that spring begins when the seed catalogs arrive. So in light of that, I want to encourage people to think now about the changes they might make to their garden to be more environmentally friendly and to support pollinators that desperately need our help right now. So I'll ask that if you have a place on your property that retains too much water, consider putting in a rain garden there. Basically, you're digging a deeper hole and putting native plants in there so they can draw that water down without it running off to adjacent properties. Consider pollinator gardens for those places, and consider replacing turf with low-growing clover. You can mow it just like you can grass, but it does provide some early spring food for pollinators. The last thing I wanted to mention is I read an article the other day about mason bees, and I had not heard about mason bees before, but basically they're docile. They don't require, or they don't produce honey, so there's nothing to protect. So they're pretty docile bees. They don't sting unless you squeeze them or step on them or whatever. There's actually a website called rentmasonbees.com, and basically they send you a small box with little cylinders in it, including the bees, and you put that in your yard. The bees come and pollinate. At the end of the season, you send it back to the company, and they clean it, they harvest the bees, and they send them off to farmers so that they can pollinate their crops. So if anybody's interested in beekeeping, this is a pretty easy way to do it. So rentmasonbees.com.
And you don't need the protective gear?
No, you do not need that. They're docile enough, they won't sting.
I'd like to be a beekeeper, I think.
With that, I'll move on ENR 0071-22, the resolution for DuPage County Electronic Recycling Program for 2023, the notice of participation.
It's been a motion and a second. Mr. Clerk, please call the roll. Rutledge.
Aye.
Schwarzy. Salmon. Tornatore. Zay. Chaplin.
Aye.
Chavez. Covert. Desart. DeCiani. Eckhoff. Garcia.
Aye.
Hart. Krajewski. LaPlante. Ozog. Lachowski. And Renahan. Thank you, Mr. Deputy Clerk. Thank you, Member Rutledge. On to the Order of Health and Human Services, Member Renahan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First of all, I'd like to move to discharge the HHS Committee on items 11A, B. These is HHS are 5322 and 5222.
Second.
Okay, there's been a motion to discharge two items here from committee. There's been a second. You need a roll call on that for two items at once? Yeah, just a voice vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The items are released from committee. And please proceed, Member Renahan.
All right, thank you. I move approval of HHSR 5322 resolution recommendation for approval of substantial amendment to 2021 action plan element of the 2020 to 2024 DuPage County Consolidated Plan, increasing and reprogramming of funds.
Been a motion and a second. Mr. Clerk, please call the roll. Renahan.
Aye.
Rutledge.
Aye.
Schwarzy. Salmon. Tornatore. Zay. Chaplin.
Aye.
Chavez. Covert. Desart. DeCiani. Eckhoff. Garcia.
Aye.
Hart. Krajewski. LaPlante. Ozog. And Pachowski. Thank you, Mr. Deputy Clerk. Member Renahan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move approval of HHSR 5222 resolution 2022 annual action plan, DuPage County Consortium. This is second reading.
Second most
Recommendation for
favorable
approval of the 2022 annual action plan element of the 2020 through 2024 consolidated plan, for CDBG, home, and ESG programs to qualify and receive HUD grant funds of approximately $6 million.
Leave is granted. Thank you, Member Renahan. On to the order of judicial public safety, Member Renahan.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move approval of JPSP 5322, recommendation for approval of a contract to Curry Motors Commercial Centers for one 2022 Ford Utility Police Interceptor for the campus security, not to exceed $40,160.
Motion and a second. Mr. Clerk, please call the roll. Renahan.
Aye.
Rutledge.
Aye.
Shorzy. Selman. Tornatore. Zay. Chaplin.
Aye.
Chavez. Covert. Desart. DeCiani. Pekoff. Garcia.
Aye.
Hart. Krajewski. LaPlante. Ozog. And Pachowski. Thank you, Mr. Clerk. Member Renahan.
All right, thank you. I move approval of JPSP 5522, recommendation for approval of contract purchase order to Business IT Source, Inc. for renewal purchase of IBM Passport Advantage for the Circuit Court Clerk, April 1st, 2022 through March 31st, 2023, $91,254.02.
Leave is granted. Member Renahan.
Thank you. I move approval of JPSP 5422, recommendation of approval of a contract with LexisNexis, a division of RELX Inc. For online research, April 1st, 2022 through March 31st, 2025 for the public defender, not to exceed $32,412.
Leave is granted. Member Renahan. I think that's it, huh? Very nice. On to the order of legislative, Member Dawn Desart.
Thank you so much. By way of a committee update, I just want to let everybody know that immediately following this meeting, we will be having the Legislative and Governmental Affairs Committee meeting. And during that meeting, we will have somebody from the state's attorney come and talk about animal forfeiture legislation, which is House Bill 4641.
What kind of forfeiture?
Animal forfeiture.
Animal forfeiture.
It's legislation based on the West Chicago fire that
Right,
killed a
right,
number of
right, yeah.
animals. Yeah.
We have lunch served?
I will not have lunch served unless you're buying. Good idea, though.
Very nice.
All right, so with that, I move approval of LEGR 0058-22, a resolution adopting the county's 2022 state legislative program.
Discussion?
Discussion, yes.
Yes, discussion. We have two folks seeking recognition. Member Chaplin.
Well, thank you, Chairman. So I'd like to point out that this year's legislative agenda includes a section titled Build Local Health Infrastructure. And it reads, public health infrastructure provides communities the capacity to prevent disease, promote health, and prepare for and respond to emergency threats and chronic challenges to health. Every public health service and system depends on basic infrastructure. Each public health program includes including immunizations, infectious disease containment, behavioral health services, food safety, and prevention requires three critical components. First, public health professionals with cross-cutting and technical skills who are compensated in a manner to prevent workforce shortages. Second, modernized data systems that support secure and efficient data exchange and provide local health departments with the tools and information to protect the public's health. And third, public health organizations with the capacity to assess and respond to emergency community needs. So, by supporting today's legislative agenda and casting an aye vote, we're essentially supporting House Bill 4640. The bill initiated by the Northern Illinois Public Health Consortium, of which DuPage County Board of Health, and which member Tornatore is the president of. On the other hand, today's an opportunity to cast a no vote against House Bill 4640 in advance. I want to make that clear because before we take the vote, because I don't want a repeat of what happened a few weeks ago when our previous state legislative agenda included the language that gave local election authorities the flexibility to increase the size of election precincts and then claim that it came from Springfield and that we can't claim that we didn't know about it. So again, supporting today's legislative agenda and this aye vote, we are supporting House Bill 4640. I just want to prevent anything from like what happened a couple weeks ago. Thank you.
Point of order, can you point exactly to where House Bill 4640
Yes,
is
I
in our
can.
legislative agenda?
Yes, I
'Cause I
can.
don't see the number here.
It's right here. It's number 2 under the public health infrastructure.
And it says House Bill 464
No, but it
there?
says exactly, this is the exact same scenario that we had with the election precinct legislation. And I verified it with Cheryl Marquet this morning. Modernize data systems that support secure and efficient data exchange and provide local health departments with the tools and information to protect the public's health. That is basically House Bill 4640.
Well,
It's
basically,
not the
that's your
exact-
interpretation.
Could mean
of
a
the
lot.
chapter, but it's
Essentially,
not
it's-
what the legislation
It's
is.
essentially
Well, essentially
doing
gets
that.
you in trouble. That's the problem.
Okay.
Well,
Okay.
it's the same exact thing that happened with the election legislation.
Member Zay, anything further?
No, thank you.
Okay, Member Hart. Greg
Thank you,
Hart,
Mr.
ladies and
Chairman.
gentlemen.
As I've stated from the beginning a couple weeks ago, my top concern about the bill that Member Chaplin mentioned has always been about protecting patient privacy rights, as well as a desire to listen to constituents with opposing views. So I'm going to offer an amendment and move to amend page 6 of the 2022 State of the County's Priorities under the section Build Local Health Infrastructure, subsection 2, which currently reads modernize data systems that support secure and efficient data exchange and provide local health departments with the tools and information to protect the public's health. I move to amend that to modernize data systems that support secure and efficient data exchange, prioritize the protection of individual and patient data privacy rights, and provide local health departments with the tools and information to protect the public's health.
Very, very nice. There's a motion and a second to amend the agenda to offer more clarity and to talk about patients' rights and privacy. Sounds like a very compelling amendment.
I'm sorry,
Any
who was the
discussion?
second on the motion to amend?
Member Zay.
Thank you.
Discussion? Well, of course, Member Rozak.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd just like to point out that I think it's fair under HIPAA that the data that's being discussed here is already protected.
So you don't favor the amendment that talks about privacy and patients'
I
rights?
think it's redundant, and I think it adds a layer
Does it
of...
harm or diminish the message if the
You
HIPAA
can emphasize it, but I think that the act and also what Member Chaplin said, HIPAA protects your privacy.
Okay.
Yeah.
Member Chaplin.
Thank you so much. And in a short note that we received from the health department, it's pretty simple, and this is from the health department. The health departments are hoping to receive more prompt access data already shared with the Illinois Department of Public Health or Illinois Department of Human Services.
Is your remarks
directed
toward the
please
amendment?
don't interrupt me. Would
This
you please
is about
stop
the
interrupting
amendment.
me?
No. A point of order. Are your remarks directed
Yes,
toward
they
the
are.
amendment?
Yes, they are.
Well,
They
please
are.
try to confine them to the
Thank
amendment.
you. Well, this is all relevant. So what they're saying, and that the information would be de-identified and not used for any personal health intervention. So we know that this information is not going to be released to the public, and that there is nobody's identity is going to be at risk. And we really have to stop using this scare tactics and this inflammatory rhetoric about this bill, which everybody should know is absolutely untrue and incorrect.
Okay, I don't think anybody's scared here today. We're just talking about patient privacy rights. Member Hart, followed by Member Zay.
Yeah, thank you so much, Mr. Chairman. I just want to make note to what Member Chaplin just mentioned. I want to make one thing very, very clear, since she mentioned incendiary rhetoric. The threats of violence and repulsive language directed at Representative Conroy and her staff in recent days have no place in our public discourse. I personally was disgusted when I heard and read the messages sent to her office. And regardless of our disagreements on policy, nobody deserves to be treated that way. And I fully condemn those misguided, dangerous threats, as I know many of us have already. However, we have a right to disagree on this legislation, and it's my view that when it comes to our own legislative priorities, which as Member Zay mentioned are different, it doesn't hurt to reinstitute our commitment to protection of individual and patient data privacy rights. We all see not a day goes by in the news where a local government, a federal government, or a state government is targeted for a cyber attack. And even though DuPage County has been investing heavily in cybersecurity, which I'm very proud of under Member Sullivan's direction, not all counties that are applied to this law would be. So I think it does not hurt for us to add this in. In fact, I think it's imperative, and that's why I would call the question on this amendment.
Further discussion, Member Dessert.
Thank you. Just a point of policy. when a member makes an amendment on the floor, we were told in rules that it needs to be in writing, and I didn't have anything in my desk in writing from.
Okay. Why don't you circulate?
Member Hart?
Jason and Joan, you can circulate it. For the record, it appears there's a printed copy of the amendment being distributed, printed and distributed.
And if I could follow up with that, was this language approved by the state's attorney?
Members A, seeking recognition.
I just, to respond, if we're talking about specifics of bill and the amendment, I mean, it just boggles my mind that, again, that Springfield, why we have to pass a bill to get timely information that to our health departments. The state should be doing their job better. And sorry when everybody say that, this information won't get out. I remember millions of people during COVID that were getting their unemployment benefits stolen through a state agency. So don't think I don't hear our people that they're concerned that more information that's out there, the threat of identity theft is real, and especially with the state of Illinois and the problems they've had in the past with it.
Further discussion, Member Renahan, followed by Member Schwarzy.
Thank you. I guess I have more of a bit of a question than anything in this amendment. My understanding is that this House bill, it came to us through local health departments, and that's how it got on the legislative agenda. So it got to us suggested from the health department, but I did not see anything in this, for example, this letter we got regarding protection of individual and patient data privacy rights. I'm just interested from the health department perspective, is this a priority that we should be considering today?
Yeah, no, I'm glad, Member Renahan, you asked that question. I reviewed this language with Karen Ayala, and she is good with it. So you can ask her yourself, but that is her statement on this language. And again, we're not talking about the House bill in question. We are talking about our own legislative priorities, where I don't believe recodifying privacy is a bad thing.
Member Tornatore, I think, has some a view to share here.
I too have been informed by Karen that she and the Northern Illinois Public Health Consulting Consortium are okay with the amended language. Again, it clarifies what I believe was probably what was in the bill. From the health department perspective, the reason that this legislation is in the hopper, it's not even in committee as I understand it, so it's a bit of a twinkle in Representative Conroy's eye, is that it's taken approximately 2 to 3 years for the health department to get the information to run the metrics, run the data on reportable diseases and others. And of course, if it takes that long, then the information that the health department gets sometimes is no longer relevant to the issue at hand. So that was the suggestion that was made by the Northern Illinois Public Health Consortium, and it was done with virtually all of the health departments in all of the counties. So I supported the legislation. I support the amendment. Whether it's needed or not really isn't the issue. I think if it clarifies something for somebody, then it doesn't hurt anything. So as opposed to getting into a contest about whether or not something is relevant or not, or whether it has anything to do with old news and old business from a couple of weeks ago, I commend anybody who's willing to clarify this legislation. And if there's any specific questions regarding it, I'm happy to answer it, because quite frankly, I've learned more about this bill than I ever thought I'd need to know over the last couple of days. So I'm in support of the amendment, and I'm supportive of the proposed legislation of Member Conroy.
Okay. Further discussion? Member Chavez? Oh, Member Schwarzy, followed by Member Chavez.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So, listening to the discussion today, is there any specific language in the bill amendment that actually threatens privacy rights? And if no, and Member Tornatore pretty much answered my question. This is just a statement to clarify to residents that we care about their privacy.
Okay. Member Chavez, followed by Member Desart.
I just want to thank Representative Conroy for bringing this important legislation. I think that what's amazing about this is that we have now the ability to push through more information that we're going to need in the future if we do encounter health problems like we've had in the past with COVID. I think it's necessary legislation. I don't have a problem with the amendment. It seems like it's just a bare minimum of prioritizing the protection of privacy for patients. I think we should prioritize that, and I don't think it changes the overall intent of the legislation. So I will be an aye on both.
Okay, thank you very much. Further discussion? Oh, Member Desart, yes.
Thank you. I just wanted to say that we're not debating HB 4640 right now. We're not debating that. We're just looking to adopt our own county's legislative agenda, which is very, very bland and non-specific. And in that spirit, I can totally support the amendment made by Member Hart to prioritize the protection of individual and patient data privacy rights. I can, as the chairwoman of the legislative committee, it's fine. I can approve, go along with that.
Okay, thank you. There doesn't appear to be any further discussion. There's been a motion and a second on the amendment. I think we can do a voice vote, can we not, Mr. Okay, yes. So there's been a motion and a second on this amendment to the legislative draft state agenda. Mr. Deputy Clerk, please call the roll.
Hart. Krajewski. LaPlante. Ozog. Pachowski. Renahan. Rutledge. Schwarzy. Selman. Tornatore. Zay. Chaplin. Chavez. Covert. Desart. DeCiani. Eckhoff. And Garcia.
And then, Chairman, do I need to make a motion to approve this agenda?
Yeah, as amended, yes, please.
All right, so I'd like to move approval of LEG-R-0058-22, the resolution adopting the county's 2022 state legislative program as amended.
Been a motion and a second. Member Chavez, you seeking recognition?
I am, thank you. I just want to thank this committee for their support of the expanding the affordable housing here in DuPage County. That was something that I brought forward to Member Desart and she brought into committee. And I think it's such an important part of our legislative agenda as we look to make sure that, especially after COVID, when people are struggling with their housing needs, that we allow renters to utilize housing support and also emergency vouchers for rental funds. And so I think it's an important part of our legislation agenda, and I wanted to bring it to our attention and thank the committee for their hard work on that. Thank you.
Very nice. Thank you. There's been a motion and a second on the approval of the legislative agenda as amended. Mr. Clerk, please call the roll.
Desart. DeCiani. Eckhoff. Garcia. Hart. Krajewski. LaPlante. Ozog. Pachowski. Renahan. Rutledge. Schwarzy. Selman. Tornatore. Zay. Chaplin. Chavez. And Covert.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. Thank you, Member Desart. The resolution is adopted. We move on to the next order of business entitled Public Works. Member Ozog.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First of all, we have decent weather this week, but I want to thank all of our employees who are involved in fighting our winter weather. We've had a significant amount this past 4 or 5 weeks, and I really appreciate all their efforts. I am very pleased to look for approval of PWP 005622, an agreement between the County of DuPage, Illinois and Deutschler, a division of Fair Graham, for professional engineering services for design, bidding, and construction management at the Woodridge Green Valley Wastewater Treatment Facility, Phase 1, for Public Works Department for the period February 8th, 2022 through November 30th, 2025, for a total contract amount not to exceed $2,252,000. Professional services vetted through qualification-based selection process in compliance with Illinois Local Government Professional Services Selection Act. Thank you.
Okay, we've done a motion and a second from Member Chaplin. Mr. Clerk, please call the roll.
Ozog.
Aye.
Pachowski. Renahan. Rutledge. Schwarzy. Selman. Tornatore. Zay. Chaplin.
Aye.
Chavez. Covert. Desart. DeCiani. Eckhoff. Garcia. Hart. Krajewski. And LaPlante.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. Member Ozog.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move for approval of PWP 005822, recommendation for the approval of a contract to Weatherproofing Technologies Incorporated for inspection, preventative maintenance, and minor repairs as needed at various public works facilities for the period February 8th, 2022 through February 28th, 2024, for a total contract amount not to exceed $40,864.43, contract pursuant to Intergovernmental Cooperation Act.
Motion and a second. Request for leave. Leave is granted. Member Ozog? I'm sorry. There's a request for a roll call. There's a motion and a second. Mr. Clerk, please call the roll.
Ozog.
Yes.
Pachowski. Renahan. Rutledge. Schwarzy. Selman. Tornatore. Zay. Chaplin.
Aye.
Chavez. Covert. Desart. DeCiani. Eckhoff. Garcia. Hart. Krajewski. And LaPlante.
Okey-dokey. Thank you. Mr. Clerk, Member Ozog, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move for approval of FMP 005722, recommendation for the approval of a contract to Integral Construction Incorporated for the window replacement project at the Care Center for facilities management for the period February 9th, 2022 through November 30th, 2023, for a total contract amount not to exceed $657,655.25 per lowest responsible bid.
Leave is granted. Member Ozog.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move for approval of authorization for overnight travel. Authorization is requested to have one Public Works staff member attend the Illinois Association of Floodplain and Stormwater Management 2022 conference on March 8th and 9th, 2022 in Bloomington Normal, Illinois for the approximate cost of $756.96. This conference will cover topics such as flood mitigation, floodplain modeling, new and pending regulatory floodplain requirements, and panel discussions. Conference will cover the latest issues and findings regarding stormwater management. In addition, this seminar provides the educational requirements to maintain certification as a certified floodplain manager.
Leave is granted. Thank you, Member Ozog.
Thank you, Mr.
On
Chairman.
to the order of stormwater. Member Jim Zay.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman. For committee update, we're proud to announce Stormwater Management has developed a grant application inviting local municipalities to submit projects for the American Recovery Plan ARPA funding. While this is limited to municipalities at the moment, we will shortly have similar funding opportunities dedicated to townships. This packet includes prioritization criteria and associated rankings for project proposals. They are developed using information from similar grants throughout the region. Municipalities are also familiar with our process throughout our annual Water Quality Improvement Grant Program. Priority will be given to shovel-ready projects that demonstrate flood protection. The grant will be up to a 50-50 cost share, and only construction costs will be reimbursable. Staff anticipates opening this grant in February. Applicants will have 60 days to submit their proposals. This will be advertised via direct mail, press releases, website, newsletter, and social media. Staff will compile and rank all submissions. Once approved, municipalities will enter into intergovernmental agreements with the county, which will go through the process both in the Stormwater Committee and the County Board. So that will be $8 million of matching money that we'll be working with the municipalities to get our ARPA funding moving here with the stormwater projects.
Very nice.
So I'd like to thank our staff for working hard to get this application going and working with some of our consultants and using some of our knowledge from water quality to make sure that this will be a smooth process for our municipalities.
Excellent.
With that, I move on SMR 5622, recommendation for an approval of intergovernmental agreement between the County and DuPage and Medina Park
Second.
District for Sycamore Avenue Drainage Project.
Been a motion and a second. Mr. Clerk, please call the roll.
Zay.
Aye.
Chaplin.
Aye.
Chavez. Covert. Desart. DeCiani. Eckhoff. Garcia. Hart. Krajewski. LaPlante. Ozog. Pachowski. Renahan. Rutledge. Schwarzy. Selman. And Tornatore.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. Mr. Zay.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Move on SMR 5722, recommendation for approval to enter into an
Second
intergovernmental
most
agreement
favorable roll.
with County DuPage and Elmhurst Park District and Villa Park for Sugar Creek Restoration Project, amount of $60,000.
Leave is granted.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Zay. A fine report. On to the order of technology. Member Ashley Summon.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move on TEP 59-22, a recommendation for the approval of a contract to AT&T for services to support analog business circuits. This contract covers May 1st, 2022 through April 30th, 2025 for a total cost of $46,800 per lowest bid.
Been a motion and a second. Mr. Clerk, please call the roll.
Selman.
Aye.
Tornatore. Zay. Chaplin.
Aye.
Chavez. Covert. Desart. DeCiani. Eckhoff. Garcia. Hart. Krajewski. LaPlante. Ozog. Pachowski. Renahan. Rutledge.
Aye.
And Schwarzy.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. Member Selman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move on TEP 60-22, a recommendation for the approval of a contract to AT&T for telecom services. This contract covers March 23rd, 2022 through March 22nd, 2027 for a total of $450,278.40.
Leave is granted.
Thank
Oh, I'm sorry. What the heck? There's been a motion and a second. Mr. Clerk, please call the roll.
Selman.
Aye.
Tornatore. Zay. Chaplin.
Aye.
Chavez. Covert. Desart. DeCiani. Eckhoff. Garcia. Hart. Krajewski. LaPlante. Ozog. Pachowski. Renahan. Rutledge.
Aye.
And Schwarzy.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Clerk. Member Selman.
Just clarifying, that was a vote on item B, correct? I got a little out of order there. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Thank you. Next, I move on TEP 61-22, a recommendation for the approval of a contract to Comcast Cable for internet services. This contract covers April 1st, 2022 through April 31st, 2027 for a total amount of $132,000 per lowest bid.
Been a motion and a second. A request for leave, although we have Greg Schwarzy back in the room now. So why don't we set a new roll call, voice vote. Mr. Clerk, please call the roll.
Selman.
Aye.
Tornatore. Zay. Chaplin.
Aye.
Chavez. Covert. Desart. DeCiani. Eckhoff. Garcia. Hart. Krajewski. LaPlante. Ozog. Pachowski. Renahan. Rutledge.
Aye.
And Schwarzy.
Okay, thank you. Member Selman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move on TEP 62-22. This is a recommendation for the approval of contract to ESRI to provide maintenance and technical support for our GIS system. March
Lee?
9th. Yep.
I'm sorry.
No, it's
I don't
fine.
wanna interrupt you.
No, it's fine. March 9th, 2022 through March 8th, 2023. Sole source 115-138.
Leave is granted. Member Selman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move on TEP 64-22, a recommendation for the approval of a contract to Dell for Microsoft Unified Support Agreement. This contract goes from February 5th, 2022 through February 4th, 2023 for a total of $145,194.
Is there a motion? Leave is granted. Member Selman.
Thank you. Lastly, I move on TECO-5-22. This is an amendment to County Contract 4805-1-SERV issued to Kinsey & Kinsey for a security review of our ERP system. It's an increase of $5,250 for a total of $27,125.
Leave is granted. Thank you, Member Selman. Fine report. We move on to the next order of business entitled Discussion. We're familiar with this. It's required by a Public Act 990646. Pension obligation projections required by the Local Government Wage Increase Transparency Act. Anyone seeking recognition? Member Schwarzy.
Thank you. I was just curious what we're funded right now with our county pensions.
Pardon me?
What percentage are we funded with our pensions right now?
Okay. We'll ask Jeff. Get into a discussion about pensions. It's a good question from Member Schwarzy about pensions.
I don't have the exact number, but as far as pensions, everybody's covered under IMRF, the Illinois Municipal Retirement Fund. We don't have separate police pension or fire pension, the downstate funds, completely IMRF. That is funded very high. We're probably in around 85%, I would say.
Okay.
And it's one of the best funded pension plans in the whole country.
Well
Great to hear.
managed.
Thank you very much.
Yes, our treasurer sits on that board, correct, Jeff? Treasurer Gwen Henry? She does. She's very capable and has provided great leadership there for years. Member Krajewski.
I think just one of the questions, Jeff, maybe just to give the board is what is our unfunded future retention payout? For
Well, I'd have to look that up. Right, our unfunded liability as far as IMRF.
Our retention payout, you know, that we eliminated back in '92, but we have to, I think that's even what this is, when the people come here and get these retention payouts,
Yeah,
we have that future liability for everybody. It's
Off the top of my head, I think it's about $15 million. We update that annually.
Right.
From what I remember from last year, it was just around that dollar amount.
That's about right.
15 million?
Off the top of my head, I can confirm that, though.
It's so nice. We had some discussion about this item today. So good. So anybody else seeking recognition on this item? Seeing none, hearing none, we move on to the next order of business entitled Old Business. Old Business. Looking back, Mr. Zay.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You know, we had a public comment about our HR director, Margaret Ewing, and my name was mentioned. I can tell you when that was brought to me, I had talked to Margaret, and I can tell you we have no better professional running our HR than she does. Looked into that complaint. We all know HR is a tough position. It was well looked at. We have an employee that doesn't agree with the county's policies and what we're going through, but I can tell you, dealing with Margaret over the years, she's a professional. The comments I made, I find hard to believe at all. She's very professional. I know they have staff on the phone. They don't do anything where they don't have multiple people on the line listening. So again, I think those claims were false and that she does a great job for us at HR.
Hear, hear. Anyone else seeking recognition on the order of old business? Old business? Seeing none, hearing none, we move on to the next order of business entitled New Business. New Business. Member Garcia.
Thank you, Chairman. You know, I couldn't decide whether this was under old business since we talked about HB 4640, but I'm going to bring it up under new business. This is kind of something that I've dealt with this whole week, as I believe many of our board members have. And quite honestly, there's never a time when political disagreement should incite violence. And the answer is never. This past week, I've had to listen to good friends experience threats of violence in a way that was frightening for them and for all that care about them. So I'd like to state the facts. The Northern Illinois Public Health Consortium, made up of representatives from 18 cities and counties in Illinois, lobbied for support in getting more timely access to health data. For example, helping figure out causes and solutions to help with maternal mortality, get complete lists of individual health care providers, and getting shared information about the nutrition program for women, infants, and children to supply more care. These were asking for much needed modifications to be made on an already existing bill, one that dates back decades, with the last modification I can research in 2009, but I believe it's part of the Illinois Department of Public Health policy, which was actually put into place in the 1990s. I'm so thankful for State Representative Deb Conroy for supporting this much needed amendment, and I say so as a member of this board and as a member of the DuPage County Health Department Board. Last week, a network of journalistic slanted newspapers picked out some wording that had been in the original bill and spread information that included our most recent pandemic. Now, I'm not going to repeat what's being said, but I will discuss what it has caused. A week of death threats to Representative Conroy and her staff, my good friends. The most vile, disgusting language in emails and voicemails I have ever heard. On the second day of these falsehoods, my first job was to get to the facts, especially as an elected official. So I called Karen Ayala of the DuPage County Health Department, and she explained the truth of the amendment in the already existing bill. My second call was to Member Tornatore, chairman of the DuPage County Health Department, to let him know the severity of what was going on and to make sure he knew the facts, which he did. I am extremely disappointed in my co-members of this board, Member Hart and Member Zay, in his leadership role of DuPage Republican Party, both of whom added fuel to the fire with social media posts that continued the spread of the misinformation. These posts encourage people to be angry and not get the facts. In respect to Member Zay, he did denounce the violence late Saturday night, almost a whole week after the threats had begun. In my opinion, that was a little too late, and in deference, I guess, to Member Hart, he finally said something today. But he had encouraged his fellow, Member Zay, had encouraged his fellow leaders to continue the smear campaign, and as of Sunday, which was 2 days ago, and even into today, newspaper articles were still being printed with calls against state rep, and as of today, the horrible emails and voicemails continue. And due to all this misinformation and threats, State Rep Conroy's office had to be closed to protect her staff. Police had to circle her home. I was at an event on Sunday with her, and a policeman was posted in the building to protect and walked her to her car. Her staff has suffered unbelievable mental suffering, listening to these threats and vile comments one after another. The state's attorney is now involved. Where is the outrage from all of our members and our chairman about what is going on? We all need to speak up and say, enough. I have always taught my children that there are consequences to bad actions. So at this time, I'm asking for Chairman to remove Member Hart from the HOPE Task Force, which is a group serving under DuPage County Board of Health. He is not the correct board member to be serving to find solutions to find the opioid epidemic, as one of the data sharing improvements was to be the sharing of information from the Illinois Prescription Monitoring Program, which collects data on controlled substances, which is part of the problem. The time to act as leaders and as caring individuals is now. Actually, it's always been the right time. We all need to say enough.
Further discussion, Member Hart?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, thank you. And as I said at the onset of my remarks when I was talking about the state legislative agenda, the threats of violence and repulsive language directed at Representative Conroy have no place in our public discourse, and I denounce them. My disagreements with her have to do with policy, and I've stated them already. As it relates to my chairmanship of the HOPE Task Force, our task force under my leadership has won 2 national achievement awards in the time that I've been on there. I don't believe any other task force or any other committee can say the same. Obviously, that's up to the chairman to decide, but I'm committed to doing my job in that capacity, and my disagreement with the piece of public policy that's proposed and my statement in opposition to that type of legislation should not be the litmus test for any of us to hold a committee chairmanships. We're all supposed to be able to disagree with each other respectfully, which is exactly what I did when I issued a statement. I denounce any threats of violence to Representative Conroy, and I am disappointed, Member Garcia, that you'd even connect the dots to us, because that is not what our intention was.
Okay, further discussion? Member Ozog.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. A few months ago, when we were discussing the possibility of us paying for Mr. Grogan's recount, I shared with all of you a phrase that was taught to me in my high school religion classes in my Catholic high school: freedom with responsibility. We all have freedom with responsibility, whatever creed we may adhere to. And I need to say a few things about what's happened this past week. First of all, if you're going to make comments about something like this, do your homework. The biggest issue that happened here, and the reason that so much misinformation was spread, was because of the likes of the Illinois Review, the DuPage Policy Journal. It's from these sources, which are considered, quote, questionable by independent journalism reviews, that led people to believe that this was going to cause concentration camps of COVID victims, quarantine victims, et cetera. I mean, it went so insane that that's where we ended up with what happened to Representative Conroy's office. And to be honest, if you were not in favor of the bill, that's fine. And if privacy was the issue, then that's what needed to be stated. Okay, and that was not. And what also needed to be decried was this kind of misinformation talking about concentration camps. This bill did nothing of the sort. So I first ask anyone here, especially those of us who have been elected by the public, to first consider your sources. When you ask about something, when you are going to comment about something, know what you're talking about first. This bill was actually promoted by our own health department and the consortium. Secondly, I need to make a comment, as I'm now in my 10th year as an elected public official. I spent 8 years on school boards. And this is a bit off topic in terms of the House bill that we're talking about, but I would implore all of you, I think almost all of us are running for re-election coming in this coming year, and I would implore all of you to stay in your lane, because it's really important that you don't go around promoting what you can do to help parents in this situation. Because I'm telling you now that you are hurting our fellow elected officials who serve on school boards. I served, we had meetings, 150 disgruntled parents about some policy issue, et cetera. But I can't imagine what these school boards have been dealing with for the last 2 years. And whether you agree with masks or you agree with vaccination policies or anything else, the point is these people are on the front line. These are our fellow elected officials. These are our neighbors. And our job has nothing to do with school board policies. We fund the Regional Board of Education, but that's it. So please stay in your lane. Don't try to say to parents that you're going to fix things when this is not your job as an elected county official. And finally, I want you to understand that in this environment, which is not something I faced when I was dealing with 150 angry parents who were upset about a partying discipline policy, people will be hurt and people will be killed if this continues. And the vile, horrible things that were said to Representative Conroy's staff, these are our friends, our neighbors, okay? This is dangerous and frightening. And on top of that, as a woman, they're particularly frightening. Men don't understand that walking down an empty street is a different thing for a woman. And to get a phone call with disgusting, vile names is very frightening because they know where you are. And you need to understand that. Finally, as Representative Conroy said in her letter to the Illinois Review, I want all of you to remember her last two phrases. Do better, be better. Stay in your lane and don't promote this kind of behavior, because that's what happened this past week. Thank you.
Member Jim Zay.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I wish we would have the same outrage when we had, threats of violence against police on certain social media sites or racist things made, but it just seems like we are the easy whipping post here, especially myself. Sorry if I did not comment soon enough, because I was in Arizona at the time on vacation, and as soon as I was made aware of it, we had a statement out, and of course, as an elected official, we renounce anybody who makes any threats of violence or anything towards any elected official, male, female, state rep, county board member, anything. We won't stand for it. Unfortunately, we don't have control of our Twitter feed. We've had a volunteer doing it. He was removed, so we will have more control of that. But again, I wish there was the same outrage with, it seems like, the continued politics on this board that have never happened, but have happened more and more at this time. Again, we can agree to disagree on comments. The preaching of what I can and can't do, I just find to be, ridiculous. We're all elected officials. We all can do what we want. If we don't agree with what you don't agree to, it doesn't mean it's open day on us to come after us. People have their own opinions on what they can and can't do in their offices. And so, again, I wish the rhetoric, as we move closer to the election, obviously it's not going to go down, it's going to get worse. But again, I'd like to see the same concern when other parties do things and board members sent silently on the board when their party was being attacked.
Member Schwarzy, followed by Member Chaplin, followed by Member Ozog.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I really just want to go on record to say that I condemn the hateful and threatening statements that were made toward State Rep Conroy. It seems like in this day and age, hateful rhetoric has become more mainstream. And it's okay to hate someone even if you don't know them just because you have a different opinion. You hate them so much you're willing to call them horrible names and threaten their life, and I just want to remind the public, as elected officials at any level, not just at the county level, but we're just up here trying our hardest to make our city, our county, our state, and our country a better place to live. So, thank you.
Thank you. Member Chaplin.
Thank you, Chairman Cronite. So, this is a really tough situation, and I think Member Garcia said it really well. I mean, I don't know, I was at that event with Deb Conroy on Sunday as well, and she did have a police escort. I mean, I don't know if the board members understand the level of threat that has been made against State Rep Deb Conroy and her office employees who happen to be our good friends and colleagues, and we are very concerned and worried about them. But you know, I understand we can, of course, disagree with a bill. Absolutely, we do that all the time here. But when we have board members, you know, the amendment was very simple. All it was that the health departments were hoping to receive more prompt access to data already shared with the Illinois Department of Public Health or Department of Public Human Services. That is all that this was. And, you know, I mean, Member Hart, you put out there in your statement that Deb Conroy's bill, HB 4640, presents a serious breach of the public's trust. That is inflammatory. Then you go on and you say that it's a blatant overreach. The legislation is a blatant overreach. This is legislation that was put forward by our health department. Now, I don't know if you didn't read the legislation or you didn't understand it, but there was no overreach and there was no breach of public trust here. So I do think that there's, you know, issues with that. And I mean, I'm very happy that you made your comments today about condemning that, but why not earlier in this week and try to pull back the people from your party to stop this, to tell them to stop, and that, you know, this wasn't, you know, and explain what the legislation really truly is. So, you know, and I understand that you know, I appreciate Jim, Member Zay, you know, condemning the violence on Saturday, but what you didn't do was set the record straight on the legislation, and you continue to fan those flames and promote a false narrative that has put Member Conroy and her staff in danger. So those are my concerns and my issues. You know, I really think, you know, being on the Hope Task Force, like any other committee here, is a privilege. And, you know, the mischaracterization to calling the Northern Public Health Consortium a special interest group, that's what Member Hart put in his thing. He called them a special interest group. They're not a special interest group. They're a group of health departments that collaborate, that work on issues of public health and then share that data. And they lobby on good legislation that helps health departments. I mean, so the misrepresentation of House Bill 4640, the total mischaracterization of the Northern Illinois Public Health Consortium, and those comments on, you know, social media, I really think maybe maybe Member Hart needs to tender his resignation as the chair of the Hope Task Force.
Member Ozog.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to point out that it is a false narrative to equate violence against police and this specific incident, okay? None of us are obviously in favor of violence against police, but this was an event that was actually precipitated by members of our board and members of the other party, of the Republican Party. You had witness slips on your website as of Friday asking people to be against this legislation. I understand there's something like 17,000 witness slips, okay? That was on your website. And your your decrying of this kind of violence didn't show up until Saturday. And while you may have been in Arizona, Mr. Zay, I'm sorry, but you are the chairman of the Republican Party, and it is your responsibility to know what is being put up on your website. And furthermore, while you decried responsibility, nobody who spoke against this bill has spoken, at least until today, against what it precipitated, what it brought forward. And what I'm talking about when I talk about school boards and other issues, these are very incendiary times. And it's our responsibility as elected officials to stay in our lane, deal with what our job entails, and to not stir these flames that are engulfing our country, okay? And on top of that, I also really resent, Mr. Hart, referring to you're speaking for all Illinoisans. You don't do that. We are a board. We speak, only the chairman speaks for the board. We can speak as individual representatives, but we don't speak for all Illinoisans. And in this particular case, the flames were fanned, and what happened in this specific incident cannot happen again in this county. and do not be a part of this going forward. Do your homework, know your news sources, and understand what you're criticizing. Thank you.
Okay, further discussion, Member Hart?
I think I've said everything on this piece. It was a political disagreement about policy. Obviously, we condemn, as Member Zay said, and as I said repeatedly at this point, any threats towards Representative Conroy. That's all I have to say.
Very good. Okay. Oh, further discussion, Member Garcia.
Yeah, just one more point here quickly. You know, and I appreciate that you're denouncing the violence as of today, and I am appreciating that we're coming together to actually denounce the things. I am just so upset about this. They're friends that I care about. I have been worried about them for all the week, and I appreciate that you're coming out like that. But quite honestly, your first phone call should have been to Karen Ayala and discuss the policy and not to do it on social media. I do not understand, and I have never said anything against our police or anything like that. I don't understand people going to social media to actually preach before they have the facts, and that is all I'm going to say.
Okay. Further discussion, Member Desart.
You know, I know what it's like. I know that terror. When I was at Channel 5, I was sitting at my newsroom desk, and my phone rang. I was telling members this yesterday. My phone rang, and I answered it, and this man said, "Is this Dawn Desart?" I said, "Yes, it is." And I said, "Who is this?" And he said, "I'm the guy who's going to slit your throat." And I said, "Pardon me?" And he said, "I'm the guy who's going to slit your throat." And I said, "Why would you do that?" I was in shock. And he hung up. And the Chicago police came out and checked out my car. Then when I got home to Aurora, the Aurora police came out and checked out my home. And I know what that terror is like. I know firsthand what that terror is like. And Representative Conroy and her staff being threatened with death threats, rape threats, this is very, very serious. HB 4640 is a bill which allows local health departments timely access to health data from hospitals, admissions, opioid prescriptions, and death certificates in order to learn patterns of disease activity and to develop fast, robust responses. If health departments know what's leading people to go to the hospital, for instance, they can identify causes and intervene quickly. The CDC, in fact, says this process is essential to public health. So I don't know why Member Hart keeps saying it's a policy difference. This information is essential to public health, according to the CDC. The problem is the missing data. Some of you have mentioned this too. State agencies such as the IDPH are frequently the direct recipients and keepers of data from healthcare providers, and all too often, local health departments are unable to access this data, or they receive subsets of the data years after years have passed. Voluntary data use agreements generally don't resolve this problem since they are often years in the making. The result is a lack of current data, which hinders local jurisdictions from carrying out their core public health functions. I remember a couple of years ago, a county in Indiana, for example, had a high rate of HIV infections, and it was because of repeated needle use. And they were able to go into that county right away and mitigate the problem by giving out free needles or a needle exchange. These are the kinds of actions that this bill could help with. So I don't understand a policy difference. Who doesn't want better data, more data, and data that can help your local county? HB 4640 proposes improving data sharing with safeguards for privacy and data security. The quarantine language that has been widely used as a weapon is part of existing state law. To quote an article I read, people are either too stupid, lazy, or ignorant to realize that, and before they threaten someone's life, maybe they ought to check to see if only the underlined sections of bills are new language. Representative Conroy, her amendment to HB 4640 only says, quote, "No rule adopted by the Department of Public Health shall be construed either explicitly or implicitly as restricting access to vital records by any municipality, county, multi-county, public health district, or regional health officer recognized by the department for the purposes described." That's it. That's all her bill says. But the social media crowd and people at some far-right Illinois and national online publications read the rest of the existing statute, which was required to be included in the proposed bill's text for context only, saw this existing statutory language like this, quote, "The State Department of Public Health has supreme authority in matters of quarantine and isolation and may declare and enforce quarantine and isolation when none exists. Some liken the language to concentration camps, which is extremely offensive rhetoric." Member Greg Hart co-leads the Hope Task Force, which would benefit from HB 4640. Member Hart released a statement in response to State Representative and candidate for DuPage County Chairman Deb Conroy's new legislation. I'm not going to read Greg's comment because it's already been described here, but first I can assure you that Member Hart does not speak on behalf of all Illinoisans. And secondly, his comments only serve to fan the flames of his far-right base, escalating the death threats emailed and phoned into an elected official. Member Hart, freedom of speech doesn't mean freedom from accountability. So rather than educating his base on what HB 4640 is and is not, Member Hart has chosen to fan the flames of misinformation, which has directly led to countless death threats to an elected official. If he is ignorant of what the bill is and is not, he's irresponsible. If he is aware of what the bill is and is not, and chose to stir up his base to send Representative Conroy death threats and rape threats, he's liable, especially if, God forbid, something were to happen to her or her staff. And I'm not being dramatic. I've listened to a handful of voice messages, and they are diabolical, beyond frightening. People are responsible for their own actions and should be held accountable for them. This is about elected officials throwing red meat to their base in order to encourage their base to attack, and they know that this particular red meat is a lie. And if they don't know it's a lie, they are too ignorant to have done their own homework on the bill and do not belong in any elected capacity in our county or in our state. I asked Chairman, I agree with Member Garcia, I asked the Chairman to immediately remove Member Hart from the Hope Task Force. Not only did Member Hart purposefully attack a political opponent through misinformation, his attack is in the form of legislation our own health department supports. This board values the Hope Task Force's work to combat the opioid crisis in our community so greatly that we doubled our grant to them this year, and we cannot allow a co-chair, a member of this board, to use the Hope Task Force as a political football. Thank you.
Okay, further discussion on the order of new business. I think Mr. Schwarzy, were you seeking recognition again?
Yeah, this is along the same lines.
Anything new you want to offer?
Yeah, actually I do.
Okay.
So I'm hearing all the discussion that's going on today, and I certainly don't believe anybody on this board intended for the things that were said and written about Representative Conroy. Certainly wasn't intended. With that being said, I do think that Member Hart is a wonderful chairman of the Hope Task Force, and I would recommend that he stay. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay. Member Covert.
I absolutely agree with Member Schwarzy. Member Hart has worked really hard on the opioid, or the Hope Task Force, and has done a wonderful job. I think emotions are running high right now, and people are very upset. And I'm sure that there was no. I don't see Member Hart having any bad intentions, and he did clarify his position. And I think at this point we're just really, I think we need to work together and stop going after our fellow colleagues like this. It's just a little too much. So.
Okay, thank you. Member Renahan, followed by Member DeCiani, followed by Member Ozog, Member Chaplin.
I was just going to recommend that, did you say Member Chaplin?
Do we want to adjourn
No,
to come back this afternoon? Maybe we should have a special call on this. You think
Well, that might be an idea. But
I was just going to enough attention.
I was just going to ask. I was just going to ask
Would that be enough attention on the issue?
I was just going to maybe suggest that the county board issue a press release or something on exactly what the legislation is, and that we set the record straight that it was this one line that really says all this legislation does is collect the data, because I think it's really important that we get the facts out, and I really hope that we can do that. Thank
Okay,
you.
further discussion. Who was next? Member Ozog?
Member Renahan.
Member Renahan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So, we all approved this amendment today, Member Hart's amendment. But I think we did so because, of course, we prioritize personal information and data privacy. I mean, who wants their personal information shown? No one does, and that's never been the intent of this bill. I mean, in fact, it was very unnecessary for us to approve this amendment today, and in fact, a bit manipulative, I think. The House bill itself de-identifies information. It is all about general public health data. It tracks progress, and privacy and security safeguards are included. It is meant to assess and respond to community needs. And it follows that the best information for the health department leads to the best results, right? I think we can agree the HOPE Task Force of all, I mean, one of their things is to assess health data, to make information, make things based on community needs. So, when we do the things that House Bill 4640 basically facilitate information going from, the state level to the local level, that helps us instruct mental health and substance abuse disorder treatments. Of course it does. When it comes to what's just happened in Sangamon County in the court decision, it's going to help our health department give mask guidance for schools, which is far beyond our jurisdiction. So, I also condemn the threats, and I condemn the misinformation and the continuation of misinformation. Let's be honest about what this is and what this is not.
Okay, further discussion. Member Ozog.
I want to make it clear that my comments today were not a direct attack on individual board members. However, I think it's really important for people to understand that your actions have consequences. And yes, we do have freedom, but we also have responsibility. And people need to understand that when you share misinformation or infer misinformation, this can be the result. And we've seen it throughout the country. So you can either be part of the problem or part of the solution. And furthermore, putting those witness slips up, etc. I'm sorry if whoever was the volunteer for the DuPage party left that up or put it up or whatever, but it took 2 days for the DuPage County Republicans to make a statement against the violence and death threats. This was in the newspaper. It was in a legitimate newspaper, the Daily Herald, I believe, on Friday. So these are not direct attacks, but they need to be said because people need to understand that your behavior has consequences. And if any of you have not heard what was said in Representative Conroy's office, have a look at the Capitol Facts, which the county pays for so that we board members have access to this particular source of information. And listen and hear what happened, because this is very frightening. And we don't need this in DuPage County. We can be better than that. We can do better, and we can be better. But this is really important to understand that your actions have consequences. Thank you.
Member Garcia.
Yeah, I can see from what's happening. I mean, I'm very offended by what the chairman just said, that we're looking for attention with this. We are absolutely not looking for attention with this, and I just am appalled at that. So I can see there's going to be...
Member Chaplin asked for us to put a statement out to the media, so that there's some effort to want to put some information out publicly. That would be attention, I would think, correct?
Well, I see that was said after, and I understand you're saying it now after it, but you were saying beforehand when we were still talking, and you said we should maybe go to a special meeting because to get more the attention we're looking for. That was your exact words, Chairman.
Okay.
Okay. So I can see you're going to do nothing about us requesting Member Hart to be taken off the HOPE Task Force. So as a member of this board, I am motioning for a vote of no confidence for Member Greg Hart in his role as co-chair of the HOPE Task Force. And for the following reason: encouraging the pulling of amendments to HB 4640, which would have set up an Illinois prescription monitoring program, just one of the things, which collects data on controlled substances. Controlling substance abuse is part of the opioid epidemic. Member Hart has shown his lack of leadership in fighting for the HOPE Task Force, and I believe that he should be censored. I'm asking for a vote on that by the board.
Member Ozog.
Did you make was that a motion?
That's a motion.
A motion for what?
Our rules don't contemplate that. That's just out of order.
Our motions
Member,
I think
for a
rules
note of
does call for
confidence.
it. Robert's rule, you can make was it motion to vote of no
That was a
confidence?
motion for a
Yes.
vote of no
We
confidence
can
for
do
member
that.
Greg Hart.
Absolutely.
Show it to me.
Connor, could you rule on that?
Excuse me, just so you know, I don't see anywhere on our agenda under the Open Meetings Act that says that public matter is going to be discussed. And the Open Meetings Act supersedes both your rules and Robert's rules. So if it's not on the agenda for for final action or discussion, or for final action, I don't believe that it's appropriate for the board to take final action on a motion
Okay.
to censure.
Can I add it to the agenda for next meeting?
You can do it in accordance with the rules, or if the chair places it on the agenda.
All right, thank you.
Member Ozog.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just want to make very clear that this is no effort for us to receive attention. And I'd like to ask you personally, did you read the Capitol facts and did you listen to what was said to these staff members of Representative Conroy's office? Because if you didn't, and if you had, then you would not be claiming that we were doing this for attention. I am doing this today and speaking up about this because I don't want to see this become business as usual in DuPage County. And we are all looking at an election year, and we are all also looking at a country that is roiled by 2 years of COVID, is roiled by all sorts of other problems. And I do mean it. We can be part of the solution, not part of the problem. And I think issuing a statement about the bill that we supported would be really in order. I think the county board should issue a statement stating that we do support this bill that was asked, that Representative Conroy was asked, and clear up some of this misinformation. Nobody's looking for concentration camps. They're not trying to kill animals. This is the kind of thing that's out there. And it's our job as representatives to be stewards of the truth, but not doing this for attention. That's insulting. Thank you.
Okay. Member Dessart.
Thank you. You know, I am challenged by the member who said, can't we all just get along? Let's not attack each other on the board floor. Well, I'm sorry, but we have a colleague who inflamed people to send death threats and rape threats to an elected individual, and that is wrong. It pains me to say this about Member Hart because I like the guy. He's a good guy. I just don't think he should be on the Hope Task Force any longer because he is going against policy our own health department supports. And, you know, here's the deal. Members say you don't want this board floor to be political, but here's the deal. If Member Hart were not running for chairman of the board, he would not have attacked Representative Conroy, who's also running for chairman of the board. He would not have put anything out on social media at all had he not been the one going head-to-head politically with Representative Conroy. My last comment is going to be this. I want to quote Amir Locke's uncle who spoke here today. He said, right is right and wrong is wrong, and right don't wrong nobody. Thank you.
Okay. Further discussion.
Yes.
Member Chaplin.
Yes, and absolutely. My intentions of putting a release out was to set the record straight on what this legislation is and to hopefully stop some of this nonsense that there was a protest this morning outside of State Rep Conroy's office. So, and then, you know, members asked about calling out people in our own party. A few weeks ago, when people from my party came here and used inflammatory and insightful language against our county clerk, I called them out on it on the board floor because we are at a time in this country where people are so on edge, they are so stressed out that the littlest thing can set them off. And I don't know, I'm sure it wasn't intentional what you had, well, I don't know, because those threats were out when Member Hart shared his post. The threats had already been out there, and again, to say that it was a breach of the public trust and a government and an overreach by a special interest group, totally out of order, or you didn't understand that, and as the members mentioned that this legislation would help the task force you co-chair. I just don't understand it, but it's enough. We've talked about it, but my intention for that press release was to educate the public and hopefully stop all of this all of this nonsense here. So thank you, thank you, thank
Okay,
you.
thank you. Member DeCiani, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As a public servant, I'm troubled that a bill which was requested by the DuPage County Health Department amending an existing state statute to share COVID and even opioid data amongst other items so we can react in an expedient manner to our healthcare community to save lives would be so misconstrued for political gain. I am also distressed that this false narrative has caused conflict and anger to the degree that we now have a 24-hour patrol protecting a DuPage County legislator who has had multiple death threats along with threats of violence to her family. This is not a reflection of the Republican Party. We are better than this in DuPage County. Furthermore, the majority of the party knows what is expected of us by our electorate and are skilled on how to deliver. This is the action of one individual, recently appointed to the county board, who wants to be in charge, but hasn't taken this time to learn the ropes and know the issues. This shows a lack of willingness to learn and cause unnecessary pain and anguish. You have to learn the ropes before you can lead. It's a responsibility of legislators, commissioners, and all elected officials to study the issues put before them so they can respond accordingly before spreading mistruths that can cause personal danger. As a member of the DuPage County Board of Commissioners, I make it my business to work with our DuPage County Health Department and other departments to understand their needs so I can effectively support them. That is what is expected of us. Thank you.
Okay, further discussion. Member Selman, Ashley Selman.
Thank you, Chairman. We have 139 days until the primary. I think we've spent about maybe 45 minutes now debating that primary. I don't think it's a proper use of this board's time. I would hope that in the future, that if there are personal disagreements, that those are brought off, not on this floor. We have a whole lot of work to do. We had a discussion on our legislative agenda. That was proper. That was a good use of our time. But this ongoing back and forth on who's guilty, who's not, it's not productive. And I would hope that we would stick to the topic, or maybe we should just change new business to campaign statements. Maybe that would be at least a little more clear for those watching. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Member Selman. Wisdom. Anything further on the order of new business? Member Renahan.
This is more of a question for the health department. I think all of us have been affected in one way or another by that decision in Sangamon County that went down, because all of our school boards aren't quite sure what to do, and I think sometimes they turn to us as governmental officials. And I'm just going to read what the judge said in that case. It's the Illinois Department of Health is limited by law in delegating its authority only to certified local health departments and has not been authorized by the legislature to delegate any of its authority to any other body of government, including school districts. So I'm just wondering if we can get some clarity from our health department, who has been so wonderful all throughout the pandemic, telling us to wear masks, giving us instructions, if they could, delineate some of this so we can help all the people who are kind of not sure what to do about this mask situation with schools. So that's just a request going out to the health department. I hope they're listening.
Okay. Anyone else seeking recognition on the order of new business? Sam Tornatore, ladies and gentlemen.
In response to Member Renahan, and I'm sure Karen's listening, so at some point maybe she'll send us something regarding it. The health department has never directed school districts regarding masks. It's always come from IDPH and CDC. I've had this discussion with superintendents, parents who have wanted to blame the health department for what's going on in their schools, and consistently our position has been the health department has made recommendations based on CDC and IDPH recommendations. So as far as the Sangamon County case, there's still discussion among school districts and legal scholars as to whether or not that applies just to those plaintiffs or whether or not it applies to school districts across the board. Obviously, school districts are taking different positions on it. But again, I would say that the health department's position is not going to change. We don't tell, nor are we going to tell any school district what they can or can't do, regardless of what some judge in Sangamon County does. So, and Karen has a different take on that. I'm sure she would let you know, but I'm pretty sure that I'm consistent with what her position would be.
Okay. So I think that concludes remarks under the order entitled New Business, where we do not have anything to come before us on the order of executive session, so I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. It's been a motion and a second to adjourn this meeting to February 22nd, 2022 at 10 a.m. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Meeting adjourned.